Yo, yo! What's going on in the hood? How's everybody doing? Oh, one sec. Let me prop up my laptop here. You know, in Florida, I got the desktop. The camera is super high. And this one, a little bit different. We gotta play in Texas. How's the audio? If somebody wants to type in the chat box for me. Hey, Jim, how you doing? Hey, Jake, what's going on? Guys, give me just 1 second. I gotta find something to prop up my laptop. I feel like if I get in on my charts, man, my head gets cut off. If you're gonna play in Texas, you gotta have a fit on the band. Let's see. Well, at least I got a stack of our boot camp books to prop it up. You guys got the new version of this bad boy? I think I added some new charts to this thing. Thing is hot. Took me 5 bottles of wine and multiple days to write that bad boy. That's how I do it every time I get class. You know, we have Jordan. He's our writer, and he's the guy that like kind of makes what's inside my brain like coherent. So his theory is always whenever we have to build something, you know what you should do is just get drunk and start blabbering everything that's in your brain, and I'll make it into something hot. All right, now we got it, I think. All right, cool. Jens, how you doing, brother? So let's get into this, baby. Let's get into this. So let me get my TC 2000 up. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good day. It's Thursday. As you guys know, we do have a webinar tonight with Willie. She's not making for the Breakfast with the Bulls today. We have a bunch of traders are ready to go live in our hedge fund, and a few of them have asked to kind of work with her a couple times in the morning. So she's off doing teaching stuff, and frankly, she likes doing that better than doing webinars. So she's doing a little private group chat today. But we do have a webinar tonight. Here's the link. Everybody always asks me for it. Cool. So let's get this party moving. So I guess first things first, what we want to go over is let's talk about the market, and then let's go over, my watch list. I prepared a pretty good watch list for you guys this morning. Holy moly, where is this desktop? All right. One second. I got all these crazy USB monitors hooked to my Apple, and so they don't show up on the screen share. Let me switch it around. All right, we got it. Where? Select a video in the call. That didn't work. Hold on. Let me get this TC2000 sucker up. Okay, so I gotta get it in this. Now. Hold on, these little desktops in Apple are funky. You gotta always have it on the right one. All right, I think I got it. What the fuck? All right, I think that should work. All right, so let's get into this, folks. So, a couple things we need to go over. First of all, is the general market itself. You know, it's been all over the place. So, yesterday we had kind of a confluence of factors coming into the market, and that is from two different things. Number one, we had a 50-day moving average bounce on the S&P, and so that led to some buying coming into the market. That's very typical when you pull back to such a price level, especially. One of the things to remember in trading is anytime you have a big thrust, you know, your first test of a particular moving average after the initial thrust usually will hold. So you got to bounce in the S&P. It was a pretty good day. There were stocks moving around. And the real thing to, kind of keep an eye on is, obviously the IWM, which is your small cap index. But you can see here on the longer term level, we kind of have almost like a big rollover pattern, but it's just been in a range. It gets to the top of the range and it comes back down. Then it pops for a few weeks. Then it comes back down. So one of the things you can tell here is, it's getting down to kind of a confluence of price support. But you're also getting really oversold. And, in this particular market over the last few years, when the market ever gets oversold, typically a bounce starts to brew. Everybody thinks, oh, hey, our run over the last few years is over. And boom, you flip back to the upside. Really, this market, in absence of news, if you were trading it in a vacuum, has been going higher and higher. That's just how it's worked. So it works pretty good. Always watch a few different things. Of course you watch the S&P, but the Nasdaq and the IWM or the Russell 2000 play a role, and one can lead a bounce into the others, just like one can often cause weakness to flow into the others. And so just something to keep an eye on, when you start to see these bounces brew. But for the most part, when we're in a bounce zone, so the S&P is in a bounce zone, hitting the 50-day moving average, the IWM being oversold is in a bounce zone, that, essentially your regular bull market type of trading is back on, and so that's, like yesterday, that's what we were doing, right? We were ripping and roaring as many stocks as we could, because that's, you're starting to see bounces. Let's take a look at the watch list, and then you guys let me know, if you have any questions or stuff like that. Oh, shoot. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so let's go into this, and this is just not in any particular order, but well, we'll talk about it. So I got this BDSI on watch. This is a biotech stock. You know, typically these biotech stocks are good movers, but you know this one, after really a tremendous run from 14 down to 18, we're essentially just coming up here and flagging right at this sweet spot. And so, you know, this is probably a stock that if the market holds up, this is a stock that can go. The other thing that would, you know, watch when these when you're playing these biotechs, you know, if you start to see strength across the biotech sector, this sector in particular, when one runs, you start to see some real heat in the whole sector. And so, you know, I have a host of biotech stocks that I like their charts, like ARWR and stuff like that. So, you know, if I start to see some real strength in them, you know, that can lead to some moves. And, you know, there were some real plays yesterday. You know, we played this thing from 34 bucks yesterday. 34.45 was our first entry. I mean, just a monster move. So, you know, there was some juice flowing into them yesterday. Yeah, I got to watch on this HRVHC for a little bit of a dead cat bounce. I don't think this is the bottom, and this next stock's probably going to zero or close to zero. But when you start to see a stock that's been pounded like this, and you start to see a little bit of a mini bottom be put in, you know, so it looks like this $5 mark is kind of a sweet spot on it. You know, if that mark can hold and you start to see on smaller term time frames some trends building, you know, this is a stock that could rip to $6 or $7. Only if, you know, this bottom holds though, and you start to see the signs on an intraday basis. Ahmed, I really like this chart. You know, after the big initial thrust here, we're talking about just a 1.5 month consolidation down to its 20-day moving average. And that is actually, or 50-day moving average, that's very typical after such a big move. You know, this stock was at 13 bucks, had the huge breakout, and then it flagged for a month and had a huge breakout. So we know it likes to flag for a month or two, and then its next leg starts. So I really like the chart on this. I think, you know, we'll probably see 22.50 the next couple days. Good little mover there. The one thing about this one is it does trade a little bit thin at times. Like yesterday, I watched it for a bit, and you know there wasn't enough volume for me to, you know, fuck around with this thing at the time I was looking at it. You know, one of the things with day trading is you need a lot of liquidity if you're going to trade a lot of shares. If you're swing trading, the liquidity doesn't matter as much. Like if I was going to swing trade this and I had, say, 200, 300 shares, 400 shares, 500 shares, it's easy to unload 500 shares. But you know, if you're day trading, you have 2,000, 3,000 shares, the liquidity becomes much more important. You just can't sell it. You know, the stock will spike up 20, 30 cents, but even then, you won't have the liquidity to get filled on any shares. And so you got to really, you know, watch the liquidity levels depending on how much size you trade. Kirk's is another one that's like, this is like what we call a rubber band setup in our boot camp classes. You know, when you get stock that goes an extended run and just crashes, when it can come down to support level and you see X, Y, Z characteristics in it, it can lead to a dead cat bounce. It doesn't mean it's going to be a trend reversal. This was back to the highs. You know, this was most likely a trend killer here. And in absence of news, you see maybe a dead cat bounce to, you know, the 200-day moving average or so. But you have to have very, you know, some specific actions intraday. You know, you want to maybe see a late day consolidation type move intraday to really trigger this type of trade. But I do like the look of this stock also. But it also depends on how I'm doing. So when you're trading, guys, you know, when you're trading, there is two things. You know, you have essentially that you're measuring. You got your risk, and then you have probabilities. And so, you should know all the probabilities of the stock you trade. So with rubber band trades, for me at least, the reward to risk ratio is in my favor. So if I get the trade and I nail it, I might make 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times my risk. The problem with them is that particular trade, I often have to take 1 shot, 2 shot, means tries to actually nail that move. And so you have to be okay with taking small losses in that type of thing. A lot of people, especially newer traders, they have trouble doing 2 things. One is actually taking small losses or accepting them, and so they get in trouble. That small loss turns into an investment. And then the second thing that happens that I see at least happen in my hedge fund all the time with our traders, we got 200, and as of yesterday now, 223 of my students trading inside the hedge fund, and they have trouble with, they don't mind taking small losses because they have to. We put loss controls on their account. But what they can't handle when they're new is actually taking a loss. Even if they lose $5, it's like, oh, it's a loss, and they get all depressed in the beginning because that's what happens when you're new. You have a lot of expectation. It's not something that can be taught, just through experience. You have to pull through it a little bit. But those rubber band trades, you have to be prepared to get nicked up all the time. So it's literally, paper cuts to your balls, and that's not comfortable, but you can live from it. You can live from it. It's just not very comfortable. So that's the one thing with the rubber band plays, is just make sure, if you ever try something like that, I feel like it's more of an expert type of play. We teach it in class and stuff like that, and some people get really good at it. But those 2 mental hurdles typically make it not that good of a setup for somebody that's a little bit less experienced. WLT is another one. I don't know if I'm going to touch this thing. I just have this weird feeling that this is one of those other stocks that really nicks me up in the balls. But the stock hasn't had a single bounce really since $7. Most likely it's going to 0. But you're starting to see the climactic volume selling come in. And yesterday was its biggest candle day, which, tells me we're getting to that certain point where you're not going to see a bottom in it, but you'll definitely see some type of bounce, and it's going to be a wicked bounce when it happens. It'll be, 20, 30%, maybe more. And it could happen in a period of a day or 2. I had not traded this stock literally in a year or 2, so I'll probably watch it for a little bit, see how it moves. Every stock has its own story and its own what it likes to do, essentially. And so you got to be really, really careful and understand how the stock moves before you make a trade in it. So just, kind of just a little bit of a word to the wise. But another one, rubber band setup, very, very dangerous. ARWR, this stock is not like the hottest chart necessarily, but the one thing I like about this stock is, it goes on these moves, and then it pulls back, and it has these bounces. And the thing I like about this stock is when it actually moves intraday, it moves really clean, but it tends to have, even on its down days, it tends to have a range that's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% some days. And that makes it really a tradable stock, is that number one, it's starting to develop a little bit of a trend. And number 2, for our sake and purposes, is that, when it goes, it tends to actually have decent sized percentage moves, which for me is obviously very important. If you have 2,000 shares of this thing or something like that, it works really well, the stock, because you can make $1,000, $1,500, in pretty quickly. So I like the way it moves. It tends to move predictably, and that's important to me. And then it's also starting to develop, a bottoming pattern here overall. That kind of leads it to, me to believe we'll probably, get a run back into these 20s at some point. So I like the location of this bad boy also. Now, if you were a swing trader, right, your entry is a little bit different. You needed to hit this thing as close to support as possible. Now it's already started, it's bouncing. So the swing trade entry is gone. When you're swing trading, you want to be buying stocks near the support so that you can minimize your risk. When you're a day trader, as you start the bounce, it doesn't really matter if you're on day 1 or 2 of the bounce. It's going to get back to, its target before, you have to look at it in a different manner. Acor is another stock I'll keep on watch today. So this stock, in general, had a nice day. It closed near highs, big volume on this thing. So we'll be looking to, potentially day trade this thing in a few different ways. Maybe if it opens up weak and starts to base out, we'll take a potential long on it. If it opens up hot out of the gate with a gap or something like that, I don't know what's doing pre-market, it gets close to that 40 spot, you might see, a quick snapback the other way. So it's just opening up relatively flat. So, that would lead me to believe there'll probably be a little bit more opportunity on the long side. If it opened up and gapped up again right into resistance, I probably would have been thinking short because, this will be a heavy resistance. But till it gets to that point, you got a couple dollars of basically room for it to run. So Crocs, I got this on watch for rubber band snapback too, but I'm taking off the list. I forgot this thing's a retail stock. The other thing is, even though it looks like it's dropped a lot, like it's just been decimated, it's really only dropped $2. It's like not even 20%. So the range on this thing on second look is it's due for a snapback, but it's just a slower trader. Now, if you were a newer trader and you wanted to try practicing rubber bands and didn't want to be in something so wild that's going to move 30-40% a day, then probably something like this would be good for practice. But for my sakes and purposes, I'll just get bored and end up selling it because you see here, it's moving about 25 cents a day. So I take that off the list. CSIQ is a stock, all these solars really got shellacked last week. You saw some really nasty movement in SCTY and some of the other names. So, see that? We had like a really nice multi-month kind of flag going here, and then boom. CSIQ's held up really, really well here. And if we start to see a couple different things, you start to see a movement in some of these oil stocks or commodities in general, then solar is a leverage play to that. On a pure chart basis, we're just having a 1 month consolidation. It's definitely the strongest of the stocks in its group and tends to move the best also with the best daily range and things of that nature. So you always want to keep a solar stock on your watch list because those solar runs pop out of nowhere. It's a confluence of factors from oil prices to PRs and other solar companies. And then when they happen, you get this nice run. AVGO is another stock here that I like. It's a big high tight flag essentially. So I'm kind of watching this one. The one thing, it tried to break out here, but it wasn't ready. See, it was just a 2-tapper. Usually you need 1 test, 2 tests, 3 tests to really get this thing going. So this is kind of a sucker's buy. We'll see if it can kind of come out of this range again. The one thing I don't like about stock, it does move a few dollars at a time, but you probably won't get that monster $10 rip out of it. It'll move a little bit more steady. Beta is another stock. We traded this when we had an awesome short of this. We took $4 or $5 in it the other day when it was making this move on the bear flag. Now it's starting to Yeah, it's starting to shape back up a little bit. And, this test of the 50-day moving average, right here, 75 is like a big support. You can see here. And also with the 50-day moving average, this one might have a little bit of juice in it to, start making the run. It's at a big pullback now from $100. And you're starting to see the same type of action in some of the other Chinese names that got really flooded off the last the last so many months. You see something like a JMEI. This is an hourly chart. We're kind of just building a little bit of what this is what they call like a wedge, essentially. If it kind of come out of this way, it doesn't really matter how you draw it. But when something's just kind of tanking down like this, and it can come out of its first kind of trend line, you can see some upside to it. So it's got a good look to it. I'd watch like the 30-minute or hourly. It's hard to see it on the daily, which is often the case. It's 30-minute charts, 60-minute charts always look a lot cleaner than 5 minutes or dailies. Yoko's a stock I'm watching in case the market rolls over. I need some shorts. It needs a base out here in flag, but you can see here, kind of you got a triple test breakdown. It's too oversold right now to be just shorting. But on a longer term level, you can see this 18 is a monster. And if it does that, it'll get down to 15 and then potentially 13. It does need to kind of hang out and base out a little bit. Otherwise, it's just going to be worthless. It's too extended right now, but something I get more on my weekly watch list. Same thing with Qihu. This is a Chinese stock. Same type of setup. See, it's a big rollover pattern here. Just a monster breakdown, but you need some sideways movement on this thing before, before it can happen. It needs to chill out a little bit. SPLK, I do like this stock a lot. You've got this kind of confirmed support here now. Yeah, I think this thing looks like it's ready to go. Maybe even at the open today, depending on the market conditions. I like this one. It looks pretty good. Data's really looks nice too. You got essentially what's a breakout pullback play. If you were swing trading, your first target would be up here, so there's a lot of upside to it. Love the look on this bad boy. And then FEYE, yeah, you got a little bit of a coil pattern here. I actually kind of like the look of data better than FEYE. FEYE is more well-known, but, I mean, they're in the same space. And then True, breakout, pull back to the 50-day moving average. You got price support, moving average support. This one looks like it's going to probably tap back into the 20-day moving average if it can hold up here. And then Loca, I've been watching this one forever. It kind of gives a little bit of a idea of a false breakout over here, but it wasn't ready. You got one tap, two tap, but now you're going for the third round. We'll see how it acts here. You can see you're kind of building some support the last few days in the 34 level. So it looks like, they're going to try to make a run on this bad boy. Let's see some stocks that are moving pre-market here. So you got, let me see. This must LDPX. This must be a buyout. Usually when a stock just sits there in a tight range like that, it's a buyout. No, chunk. CYBR. So this was an IPO stock that we were trading yesterday. Damn, I had this sucker at freaking $24 too. I had a Had a nice run here. We'll watch it today. It's going to be in play. I don't have any bias on it yet because RWLK, if you remember that a couple weeks ago, this stock had a really hot 3 days. And so, usually IPO stocks, how it works is after that first initial push, they actually fade back for a period of few days and then they ramp up. But that is no longer the case. These suckers are just going. It's just a little bit of change in structure in the market. FUL, this is a stock that must have had some bad earnings or bad news. You can see it was closed at 44. We're drifting down in pre-market. So this will be something that we will be watching for a PR earnings, breakdown setup. You got to make sure you have a lockdown setup intraday, but I do like playing these type of things. PCRX too. I was watching this one before we started. Stock's been a huge trend for God knows how long, and we had our first crack here, on some type of news, and that breaks it under the 50-day moving average, which it really hasn't gone under in some time. It might give us, some potential entries for shorts. I'm not sure what the news is. Ideally, if it's an earnings or something like that, rather than like a downgrade, that's good. So we're seeing this warning. So it is news in some manner. So we'll see how this one acts. It looks like it's going to open up right under that 50-day moving average. I don't really see anything that hot. MZOR, this popped up on the scan, but we only got one candle so far, so we'll have to keep watching that one. Yeah, no volume. No volume. Okay. So not too much moving yet pre-market on some of these movers. So usually when I see that, I go right back to the watch list, and I usually will go right back to the watch list and make sure that I'll be nailing these things. Dave, GoPro gapping a couple days up, but just getting on the Bollinger bet. Wait to short for another day. I'm probably not gonna try to short that one just yet. I want to see. I would need to see a crazy extension in this thing. Every time this thing dips a little bit, it just gets bought. Nobody's having good luck shorting this thing. So I will keep away from it unless I see it go straight parabolic. You see it go to $100 in the next 2 days, David, short it. G-Dot for red to green. I don't know, man. Maddie, G-Dot moves like shit. It really does. I never had freaking good luck with this stock. And that's everybody's got their own stocks that they just suck at, I've been trying to trade G-Dot for years. I'm like 0 for 10 on that thing. Let me see, pull up a chart here. JRJC, if I see a run in China stocks, I would definitely rather play that one. Thanks, Chris Johnson. Appreciate it. MHR. Thank you, Dr. Tim. Dusky. BWLD. Let me see. Hold on. BWLD. Somebody's asked about BWLD. I don't know what. I'm not sure on this one necessarily. For my purposes, BWLD is just not ready. It's not stretched enough to be a rubber band play. So You're just kind of buying it to buy it. It's oversold, but I like to see my stocks really, really stretch when I try to. If you're going to bottom fish, do one with a ton of upside. And Dusky, dun, 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 dun. Dusky, I can't tell on this one either. You know, it could bounce right here, but I mean, it's fallen a lot. I'm not sure in that one either. It's inconclusive. James, is Baba ready? Baba was ready yesterday. You missed it. The 88 break was the spot. Hey, Dimitri, how you doing? TKMR probably needs the rest. You know, it ran kind of right into its target. You know, the real buy and the breakout on this thing was at, $21 or so. It ran into 26, which was its major resistance. Now it's got to come back and relax for a bit. All right, folks, I got to get ready. I got to start prepared for the day. So I will see everybody tonight, and we'll get this thing going. Tonight, 8 p.m., I'll be on with Willie. So let me know if you guys have any questions for that or anything. I can repost the links. Otherwise, I'll see you all 8 p.m. today. Boot camp students, we have webinar 4 o'clock after the market closes to go over the trades for the day, and then 8 o'clock webinar. So you guys got packed schedule. All right. Peace. Later, folks.